Okay. Welcome back. Kind of, kind of a bit of a new one this time, because my vision for this channel is to have a few different things that I'm doing. Uh, Obviously, video games is the most obvious and easy thing, and that's what I've been doing up until this point, just because it's easy by comparison. There's not a lot of necessarily thought to it. However, um, my intention is to kind of do some other things that are more akin, not akin, but other kinds of content, specifically world building, for DnD and game design stuff, because there's just things that interest me. Uh, I'm kind of blanking on one, but for actual video games at least. But for there is a particular bit of design, not exactly game design, since it's not for a video game, but there is a card game I play called Flesh and Blood. And in that card game, there's a particular hero called New, who I think, in a general sense, her overall gameplay of how she's meant to be played works out nearly perfectly with how she's portrayed and characterized. And there, it's just stuff like that. Oh, Jesus. That kind of interests me, and I would like to talk about here and there. But that's kind of the end goal for now. I think I'll just stick to some D&D stuff because that's a little easier. Because I can just put on this kind of Minecraft footage in the background as a almost like a B-roll type stuff. And yeah, so just so you all are aware of what is going on here. So obviously I got a beacon. Wow, having a beacon makes trying to get a hold of more deepslate for the smeltery project even easier. Because this would be so much slower otherwise. Also just getting hold of cobble and regular stuff. It made digging out the main chamber a lot easier. And I'll probably show that off as well at some point. But anyways, so D&D, just because that's the easy thing. I've been working on a homebrew world for, I think it's about 2 years, a little over 2 years now. Granted, whenever I say I've been working on this thing for 2 years, it's like how I said I've been playing this. I think at one point in one of my videos I said I've been playing this world for a few months now. No, I've not in fact been playing on this world for months straight. It's more like that is the very beginning of when it started, and it's just been incremental, do things here or there. And so yeah, it has not been a constant work in progress type deal. Actually, get this up, yeah, right now. gosh, I keep forgetting. It's not been a constant, oh, I'm always working on this thing, but it's been fun to just like put a little bit of work into it here and there. And the idea behind it is that it's high fantasy, high magic. Just that's the kind of stuff that I tend to like reading. So it lets and just stuff that I enjoy in general. So it lets me oh hello cave. Um, it lets me use a lot of the stuff that I read kind of as like inspiration that's more easily translatable. Because like yeah, you can always like translate something in whatever medium you've been consuming. Like you could translate sci-fi to fantasy or what have you, but it's just easier because it's like this. It's the same concept, the same analog. There's no actual translating it. It's just there, and you can a lot of times just take that concept or idea and move and wholesale and use it for whatever you're doing. And I think what I'll do is just like, at least for these kind of more D&D videos, I'll talk about just like aspects of my world that I've built. And I think today I'll start with I think I'll just start with like one of my countries, Wichal. Wichal at present is what I have the most built out. Simply, well, I don't know. It's weird. So, Wichal, like, and yeah, I'll explain why. Wichal as a country is, like, not super flushed out as far as, like, the governmental system goes. And, like, the specifics on, like, who are all nobility within this country and such. But I have it a lot more fleshed out as far as like area. Oh, I haven't heard this before. Areas that players can go and do things with, as well as like NPCs and such. And that's really because my players are in Wichal right now and have been for a few months now. So, and well, we're playing, or at least trying to play every week. It doesn't always happen, but we're able to get a session in almost every week. Usually about like 4 to 5 hours or so, just for reference. But Wichal is one of my players' country of origin, and so that's technical too. But I'm only going to count one for reasons and for backstory reasons. Anyways, oh no, I have heard this one before. I just didn't recognize the beginning of it. Anyways, so Wichal is relatively fleshed out as far as like things to do, places to see, that kind of deal, people to talk to. Not super fleshed out as far as the overarching country itself. And so I think doing these videos like this where I just like talk about whatever the country is are be useful because for one it lets you guys provide any feedback you might have on it, so I can make them more rounded and such. But otherwise, it just it lets me get the ideas out and solidify the whatever concept for the place is. So the main distinguishing factor about Wichal is that it is a country mostly known for its forest, singular. Because yeah, there's like, it's not just the singular forest, but it's really what it's known for. This forest is called the Valewood Forest, and that's because this forest, and just kind of Wichal in general, but the forest is makes up a lot of Wichal's land, so almost always it's just categorized as the forest, basically. There is a lot of, well, more accurately, the veil between the plains is thinner, such that relatively frequently the Feywild or the Shadowfell will kind of leak in, and that makes this forest just very dangerous and hard to traverse for most people. Now, it's obviously there are some countermeasures, otherwise people basically wouldn't be able to properly live in this area. At least at present day, especially around cities and around roads, there are these wardstones. And wardstones are kind of a concept that I've amalgamated from various different sources, including like Pathfinder's rune system and otherwise. And I quite like how it works, in my head at least, because I have not done nearly enough work trying to like figure out the proper mechanics for it. But these wardstones use these runes, which people have made basically as like a planner anchor, I guess, to keep the area around it stable, so that the Feywild or the Shadowfell doesn't just leak in and start causing chaos, because that's kind of what those two planes end up doing when they leak into the material. So there's that. These wardstones and just the forest, and these wardstones typically get managed by the Valewood Wardens, and they're kind of like a public, like a state-funded public, not police, because they're not police, but they're like a semi-specialized force that's meant to basically deal with threats with regards to the Valewood. And so a lot of them have, well, not necessarily a lot, but like it's kind of like a nightly order almost. But there are people in it that specialize in, say, the Shadowfell, or there's some that specialize in the Feywild, such that they respond to threats only dealing with the Feywild or the Shadowfell, whatever it may be. And so the Warden's job, kind of as I've been alluding to, dancing around a little bit, is to respond to and deal with threats from the two planes. And sometimes that's just, oh, some random Shadowfell monster has appeared and is wreaking havoc. Need to go kill it, deal with it. Or sometimes it'll be, oh, some Fae decided they want to make a deal with someone and are just doing Fae things, which are a general nuisance to almost everyone involved. And so it could just be something relatively simple like that. Or it could be more like the incursions, where just the Feywild or the Shadowfell will seep into the material, tainting that area for a kind of random amount of time, almost making it like you have been transported to the Feywild or the Shadowfell for a small amount of time. Well, not necessarily, but you've been transported to the Shadowfell or the Feywild while within that area. How long these incursions last is random. Sometimes some of them have been around for decades, some of them are around for a few seconds at most. And so most of the time the Wardens will try and contain whatever the incursion is. I guess firefighters is a decent way of like looking at them for a real life analog, because they're there for a specific threat, not a fire per se, but the supernatural fire, I guess. Right, we are nearly full on deepslate, which is great news for the building, but we are going to need more. The Wardens keep up with the ward stones as well, such that they're typically the ones patrolling roadways and such, and not like patrolling in just a regular guard sense, but more like walking along the roads, checking on the ward stones, making sure they're good, so that roads stay safe, and that the cities that wardstones are around and such like that also stay safe. This is kind of an interesting little formation here. But yeah, that's their job. And I don't have any minecarts down here. Gonna have to run up the old-fashioned way. So the Wardens are, at least so far, one of my more favorite entities, I guess, that I have made up, because they're just interesting to me. Grab these as well. Now, when I come back, I'll be able to fill those with deepslate. I'm gonna need to switch the order here, however. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay, let's bring, that can stay. We'll put random regular blocks in that one, and we'll fill the other one and like inventory with deepslate. Leave the resources there for now. Okay, back to DnD. So that is the warden's main job, is to basically keep people safe from the planar threats that might be. And so basically every city will have, I guess, I'm not sure how I would put it, like an outpost or like a branch, there we go. Like every city has a branch, and every town doesn't, like, yeah, villages and towns won't necessarily have a whole branch and stuff, but more than likely there will be a, can you tell I'm kind of making at least this bit up on as I'm going? But for the smaller towns and stuff, they won't necessarily have a branch, but they'll have a probably at least one person or two that kind of is willing to put them up for the night, basically to like board them. And yeah, so that's, I think, mostly everything for the wardens, at least right now. Everything is still pretty fast and loose, trying to get everything figured out of like, how do I want things to be, how do I want this to be set up? How do I want all of these people to behave? That kind of deal. It's fun, but also it's kind of an exhausting. It's kind of exhausting to just sit down and world build, I find, because you're just sitting there like, okay, so what about this? What about this? What about this? You end up going down just kind of a ridiculous rabbit hole of things that about them, about a particular thing, whether that be like, okay, so for example, the wardens, yeah, okay, they're state funded, got it. How do they like, how do they recruit? How does recruiting work? How does training work? Stuff like that. Is there like an apprenticeship, internship type deal? Well, just all of this random stuff, and it's like, please. I tend to find it very difficult to just sit down and world build. Despite the fact that, like, I probably should have been paying attention. Glad I didn't fall. Anyways. I enjoy, like, sitting, like, making things, but I find it hard, too. It's like, when I get into that kind of flow state, it feels awesome, and I'm able to crank out an absolute crap load of work and just get just have everything figured out, basically. But it's hard for me to get to that point in the first place, I find. And so my hope is that these videos kind of serve as a way to help improve that, I guess. Obviously having suggestions is good, because like the main people that I would talk to about this stuff to try and get suggestions on trying to improve it and like give things more depth are my players, and so I can't really talk to them about it. So it's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of neat. I don't know what it is, but this like tunnel here in the middle of this, that you can see this giant gash in this little area that I've been quarrying out. Something about it. Let me do this. There we go. Let me do this so I can use the XP for mending, because my pickaxe is not doing so hot right now. I've been doing a lot of mining, including when I was mining around and basically trying to make a big spawn platform for withered skeletons so I could even fight the withered and get this beacon. So it's been through a lot lately. I haven't been over the mob farm to fix it. Yeah. The wardens are probably one of the more influential factions within Wichal, simply because they're influential by necessity. They determine what's safe generally for the country, just because they're the ones that are ultimately fighting the Shadowfell and the Feywild. So they're a big deal. My intention is for Wichal to be a fairly bog standard monarchy, and that's so far that is how I've set it up. I don't have many of the like nobles figured out really, but I have a few. And the party is working for one of them. He has contracted the party such that the party does different jobs for him, and in return he pays them, and he's giving them a place to stay. So he's boarding them in one of his spare places he owns. We do love Insta-mine. Except sometimes. Sometimes it causes problems. And so he's been having the party go and do things for him. The most recent thing that the party went and did was they went to find an artifact of some kind. No one was quite sure what kind of artifact it was, what it looked like, or anything. Just that this artifact is rather strong. It's got some amount of like prophetic powers to it, and there's also some shadow magic or something going on with it. Not quite sure. So the party got sent to go get this thing. And it was located in some ruins in the Everdusk Valley, which is a particular place within the Valewood Forest that is known for being kind of dangerous. Part of it being this artifact's just presence there, corrupting things. And while I didn't go too deeply into the whole, like, oh, this is a dangerous place, you really don't want to be here if you don't have to, but I think they had enough things to deal with all of the shadow corrupted things that I was sending at them. And so this artifact is the Eye of Sable Dawn, and it's a crystalline orb that looks like you took a piece of the night sky and turn it into glass almost. And that is the general description. And this thing was originally meant to try and contain shadow magic and that kind of deal. However, something went wrong in its creation, and now it contaminates things with some kind of Shadowfell influence. Oh, interesting. New cave. I don't have many torches. I'm also not seeing any diamonds here, so we'll just keep mining this out. We can explore that later. What was I on about? The hell was I talking about? I need to stand still and think about this because I didn't make a script or really even any talking points. Just kind of freeballing. The Warden's... Oh, the Eye. So, the Eye of Sable Dawn. They found it in some ruins, and I gave them kind of a more standard dungeon crawl thing with it. Not a ton of traps, per se, but... a fair amount of kind of shadow-tainted enemies that they could deal with. And so there was a fair bit of combat in it. One of the... I guess, yeah. So a lot of it was kind of undead in some form or fashion. Like, the party ended up fighting ghosts, there were some wraiths, that kind of thing. And the party did pretty well for themselves. No one died. There was some close calls, especially on the boss. But at present, the party's level 5, and so it's not like they're pushovers or anything. They have some combat capability. And so I thought it was a good time, and I think from what I have, at least from what I've been told, my party seemed to enjoy the kind of dungeon crawly bit, as well as like how I set up the boss. So, unintentionally, the the ghost ended up being probably the most threatening by proxy. They were the most threatening enemy by proxy. And I say that because one of the ghosts did the life drain thing, where you can't, it reduces your max health total, right? And that was fine. It dropped the party cleric to like 22 max health. And I was like, okay, this is neat. This should be fine. But the one of the party members was concerned that there's a lot of undead here. If we leave, they might come back. They might get like reanimated by the eye and like the shadow magic like seeping from it. And so instead of long resting or anything, because they really didn't want to do that inside the dungeon, which was fair because I'd already shown that there were ghosts. They just short rested and then went to fight the boss. And so the cleric went into the boss fight with 22 health. That that was a little scary, to be honest. It's like, oof. It could have gone way worse. The party was pretty smart about it. My boss, well, yes and no. So the boss was positioned on kind of like a throne looking thing almost, but like by the Eye of Sable Dawn, up on a like raised little dais, I guess. Um, and he was just sitting there, like I didn't have him move or do anything until the players got close enough, and they did have to get close, even though they had some dark vision, because the shadow magic from the eye just made it all dark, even through dark vision. And so the party got up to like I think 60 feet or so. They got pretty close, and then one of them, I forget how at this point, they didn't touch it, but they provoked it. I think it was when they had thrown a torch up on top of the platform, the dais it was sitting on, and then it got off and then enter boss fight. So one of the things is that there were some glowing runes around the edges of this dais, right? And my intention was like, okay, it's not gonna like fuck with you unless you like provoke it somehow first. And that's how I did it. But one of the my intention was, okay, so there are these runes here. One of the players will probably try and investigate them, see what they do, what their purpose is, and then if the runes get fucked with, then the boss will awaken and that kind of deal. And the whole thing with the runes was that they were kind of like old ceiling runes meant to help keep the eye sealed. Unfortunately, well, the intention was, okay, if they inspected the runes, they would, and did well enough, of course, they would find, okay, so we could probably channel magic through it to kind of strengthen the seal and presumably do something to the boss. And I had it set up so that it would do radiant damage. One of the damage types it was that would actually hit it flat on. So I had it immune to, not immune. Well, it was immune to like necrotic and I think poison. But other than that, otherwise, I think it was resistant to a fair amount, including non-magical, which none of them, for whatever reason, had, like, gone out to try and find a magical weapon yet. Granted, I hadn't made it, like, particularly necessary. They hadn't really been fighting enemies that have non-magical resistance and stuff like that. But it was really relevant here. So it would have done, if they had channeled some magic in through the runes, I would have, and I was gonna make it cost like a spell slot to do that. It would have done some radiant damage, so it would have, that damage would have gone through properly. It wouldn't have been reduced or anything. And once all three were pressed, well, not pressed, but like activated, I guess, it would do an even larger burst of damage and stun it. My players didn't inspect the runes or anything. Instead, just opted for breaking the runes. So instead of them basically getting to do free damage with them, they had the boss healing turn by turn. Combine that with a fair amount of resistance, it was a pretty tanky boss. He was beefy, and I think my party seemed to kind of enjoy the threat of like, holy shit, this thing is still alive. This thing is still beating our ass, because it had a 15-foot reach with its weapon, a glaive. Not that the glaive itself was giving the reach. It was a large creature plus a polearm. But combine that with a small, not a small, but like a ranged kind of spell attack, I guess. And it was able to be pretty threatening. It could get around pretty easily and just hit almost anyone on the battlefield at any given point in time. And I explicitly made it so that the boss wasn't doing a ton of damage, but he was still threatening, which I think combined well with its tankiness, so that it wasn't like not only ungodly tanky and mobile and dealing damage, so it was more tanky and mobile, and it seemed to work out. It seemed to work out well, which is nice. But yeah, they did make it harder on themselves by inadvertently giving it healing, which was kind of funny. Yeah, I enjoyed that fight. It was pretty close. As I mentioned, the party did actually play it pretty smart, though. They used heat metal on him, and my boss was wearing plate armor, so that really helped keep him alive, especially with how tanky he ended up being because the healing. And so the disadvantage on all attacks was quite beneficial for them. I think he missed maybe like half of his attacks or so, which thankfully could have been way uglier otherwise. But the party managed to prevail with some smart spells casted, like heat metal and so on. Yeah, at least for now, I think that's all I'll talk about. Just because we're already running a little bit long. What, like 45 minutes ish. Not that like I care about it being super overly long, but I'm not 100% sure where to go here from now. So, I mean, while I have a little bit of a think and maybe actually set up proper like talking points and stuff so I can like check that for basically notes of like, okay, we can talk about this and this. I think that'll be all for today. As always, appreciate all of y'all for being here, for supporting the channel, whether that be commenting or doing liking, just the regular YouTube shit. Y'all know how the game goes. But yeah, if you want to see more of this, by all means, please let me know. I think whenever I do something like this, where it's just kind of YouTube stuff, or not YouTube stuff, DnD stuff, I'll probably just do some kind of video game in the background, so as like a B-roll, just so that it's not just like blank screen number 45. And also because I don't really have proper visuals to give you guys. I'm not an animator. I'm not really much of an artist. That's not the kind of stuff I draw. Granted, you can see some of the stuff I draw in both my channel banner, and my profile picture. But yeah, it's just easier to do this so that you have something to look at. It's just not blank nothingness. Yeah, I will see you guys next time.